again, it's on. You know what it's time for. It's time to play some toss. Welcome, everyone, to episode 37 of the Tristain on Sports Show Toss. It is your main man, friend of neighborhood T-Square, Trisha Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us. So glad you are here. Let's do things like we normally do it. Let's get into state of the state where we speak about the state of sports in the state of Wisconsin. And let's jump right into it. Let's get to the Milwaukee Brewers. The Milwaukee Brewers, who are still at this point in second place in the National League Central, only now it is a 3-game deficit to the Chicago Cubs. And they actually start and have started a critical 2-game series against the Cubs. 2-game series. They're 3 games behind. If you can get these, you put yourself back in striking distance of regaining that National League Central lead that you had for much of the season, and also recapturing that first wild card spot. The Philadelphia Phillies are actually in first place of that first wild card spot, or they have possession of that first wild card spot currently ahead of the Brewers. Look, the Cardinals are right behind them in the wild card. They've played themselves back into contention. Fired Mike Matheny. They're back in it, as we all thought they would be. So the Brewers, they have not been playing well. They played themselves into a situation where it's almost dire straits. This is almost a carbon copy of 2014, when the Brewers spent over 100 days in first place. And not only did they lose their way out of first place in the Central Division, they lost out on 2 wild card spots and ended up sitting at home watching the playoffs instead of participating, going after a World Series championship. The doom and gloomers are loving this because they say, hey, you know what? This is what we expected to happen. We knew the Brewers couldn't be trusted. They were fool's gold. This is a negative person's dream right here. I, on the other hand, am trying to stay positive, even though I do have some bones to pick, and we'll get to that in a second. Again, currently the Brewers are 67-54 as they go into this critical 2-game series against the Cubs. And as we record this program, it's the bottom of the 3rd inning, and the Brewers have jumped out on the Cubs 5-0. Lorenzo Cain with a home run. 5-0 up on the Cubs right now are the Brewers. That's a very good start, but we've seen them get some very good starts and have some faulty finishes. Just last week against the San Diego Padres, the worst team in the National League. You're at home at Miller Park. You're supposed to handle teams like this. Now, I get it. It's baseball. It's 162 games. Every dog has its day. Some of these losing teams are going to come up and they're going to win games. They're professionals too. That comes to be expected. But to lose 2 out of 3 games in that series, especially when both of those games you had a lead at some point in that game, is inexcusable. It's inexcusable. And everybody has to play a part in it. Everyone has a hand in the faults of this team currently, in the funk that they're in. My first bone to pick is with this offense. This offense is exactly what I said it has been. It's been inconsistent. For all of the big boppers that they have on this ball club, for all the guys that can actually hit, guys like Lorenzo Cain, guys like Christian Yelich, guys who are hitting over 300, for all the guys who have power in this lineup, Yelich has shown some pop in his bat. You know, the Travis Shaws of the world, the Jesus Aguilars of the team, the Jonathan Scopes, the Mike Moustakas. Those guys have shown tremendous, Eric Thames, those guys have shown tremendous pop in their bats. Run producers. But you look at those stats, you look at what those guys are able to do, and then you look at the results of some of these games, and you say, what the hell happened? Why are these guys not scoring more runs? Just Sunday in Atlanta, the Brewers put up 19 hits. 19 hits. And got 8 runs out of it. Now, normally, if you have 19 hits, you're expecting a lot more than 8 runs on the board. I'm just going to put that out there. 19 hits and you put up only 8 runs on the board. It's not like teams get 19 hits very often in the major leagues. It's not every day they get double-digit hits as a team in every game in the major leagues. Pitching is tough to hit. But if you get 19 hits, you need to get more than 8 runs. And that goes to show you how inconsistent this offense is. They go out there and they give you all the hits you need, but they don't get you any hits with runners in scoring position. You have guys who are run producers, but when it matters most, when you have runners on second and third, as the Brewers did in an inning in that series that they lost to the Braves, I believe it was bases loaded and no one was out, and you don't score a run. You need to execute. They can't bunt to save their lives. They don't play station-to-station baseball, even though they got guys on this team who can steal bases, and Kane and Yelich. It equals an inconsistent offense. But then you see them go on stretches where they're putting up double digits in runs, and they don't even get double-digit hits to do it. This makes it all the more frustrating. You can't be a team that sits there and waits on a 3-run homer to save you behind. You can't constantly do that. But that's what this team has done. And they've gotten results, sure. You're sitting currently in second. You were in first place for a majority of the season. You still have a shot at regaining that first spot, although the Cubs have been playing a hell of a lot better. The Cardinals have been playing a hell of a lot better. We already talked about Pittsburgh last week. They're going to be that dangerous team that's there to ruin people's plans. You have to find a way to be more consistent with your bats. You have to find a way to drive runners in when they're on second and third. Runners in scoring position. You cannot wait on a 3-run homer to save you all the time. You're not always going to get it. We spoke about it multiple times right here on this very program. In the postseason, it's going to take a very good bullpen, and we'll get to them in a minute. It takes a good bullpen, defense, and timely hitting to win in the postseason, because you're going to face everyone's best. The moments are going to be heightened. The moments get a little bit tighter, more pressure-packed. You have to be able to execute. And this offense has been inconsistent in doing so. And it's maddening to watch, because you know they could go out there and flat out hit. You know they could go out there and mash the ball. You know they have the players to play station to station. Get runners home when they're in scoring position. But it just doesn't happen consistently enough. And it's resulting in quite the funk. I believe the Brewers' record is 12-11 since the All-Star break. That 12-11 has allowed the Cubs to start getting hot and start to separate themselves, even though a tiny bit, but they started to separate themselves. You've allowed the Cardinals back into this entire race. The Phillies have the first wild card spot. You'd be playing on the road. If the season were to end today, you would be the second wild card going to Philadelphia trying to win a playoff game. They're horrendous in the daytime, and I don't even know what their daytime record is exactly. The last time I checked, it was something like 17-29 during the day. What the hell is that? They're much better at night than they are in the day. I don't get it. It's one of those weird splits in baseball, one of those weird splits in sports, period, that I just do not understand. Do you execute better at night? Is your body clock thrown off playing during the day? I mean, I don't know what it is. But that's just one of those weird splits. So the offense is inconsistent. So what's my other bone to pick? My other bone to pick is with Craig Counsell. I know some people out there are raising their eyebrows. What do I mean? But if you watch these games and you watch the way this season has gone with pitching, you'll know what I mean. I get coming out with an early hook early in the season, back in April, back in May. You don't want guys to overextend themselves. You don't want them to get hurt. You got to ease them into stretching those games out. We're talking about starting pitchers. I get coming out with the quick hook then. Absolutely get it. But when you're in July and August, as we are, you can't be coming 5 2/3 into the game when the pitcher has 82 pitches and he's getting guys out, you can't be coming out that dugout with the quick hook. Great job. We'll get him for you. What are you talking about? I'm cruising. And it's because of moves like that Craig Counsell continues to pull. He has taxed this bullpen, and the fatigue is now showing. Sunday game against Atlanta, every single reliever he brought into the game after Chase Anderson's short start. Granted, Chase gave up, I believe, 4 runs. But the Brewers were back and forth with the Braves, and they tied that game, eventually ended up giving it up, losing that series. But he came with the quick hook, and every single reliever he brought to that game, starting off with Corey Knebel, who's just been god-awful, is not the closer anymore, should not be the closer, should definitely be Jeremy Jeffress. The way that Knebel gave up that game, that was probably the most disgusted, other than when the crowd gave Hader a standing ovation after that whole racist tweet. That had to be the most disgusting moment of the season. You cannot go into the 9th inning with a 4-2 lead and blow that game against the worst team in the major leagues or the National League. Either way, they're scrubs. But they certainly didn't look like that, not against your bullpen. Not against Knebel, who has not been right since last season. He was an all-star last year. Comes back this year, has an injury problem. Now, then all of a sudden, he can't drop that curveball for strikes. So everybody's sitting back waiting on the fastball, and they're pounding it out the park. Or they're waiting for that hanging breaking ball, which he's been giving a ton to hitters. And they're pounding it out the park. God, that was just awful. That game was just horrible. I could not believe what I had just saw. I couldn't even write what I had just saw. It was that bad. But you go back to Sunday, every single reliever gave up at least 1 run. I believe 2 relievers gave up 2 runs. You end up losing that game 8-7. You lose the series 1-2 to the Braves. Again, another critical series. Braves now have the NL lead in the NL East, which means the Phillies have the wild card lead, as we stated before. For the first wild card, Counsell has taxed that bullpen from coming out with such a quick hook. And you're starting to see the results of that. So he's going to have to allow these guys, when your longest start by a pitcher is by Junior Guerra, who went 8 innings, that's your longest start of the year, where you have almost every other major league team has a complete game. I might be wrong on that, but I know a majority of them do. Guys on this pitching staff for the Brewers have been good enough to go the distance. But Craig Counsell, with his forward thinking, and I think sometimes he outthinks himself. Oh, we'll win it in the bullpen. Well, you can't keep taxing the bullpen like that, because now you're getting the results of taxing that bullpen now. They're fatigued. They're giving up runs to everybody. Your offense is not consistent enough to be able to overcome crap like that. So he's going to have to change his way of doing things. And guys are going to have to get better results. This offense needs to become more consistent than it has been all year. This bullpen is going to need some rest, which means these starters are going to have to be allowed to go 7 and 8 innings. Hell, let a pitcher go out there and try to finish the game. That would be nice to see. Guys haven't always been in trouble on this starting staff. This starting staff has actually been pretty good. You got to give them a chance to finish this game. You got to give your bullpen some rest. This offense has to become more consistent. But as a manager, you need to have your finger on the pulse of all that and realize all this and not be hard-headed and not outthink yourself. They need to get hot and stay hot. It's time. It's about mid-August. It's time. Stretch run is here. You need to make a move and make it soon. So good start today, 5-0 as we record this program. Again, bottom of the 3rd. But man, you need to get hot real soon and figure this thing out real soon. Otherwise, it's going to be a carbon copy of 2014. It's going to be a carbon copy of last season, where you spent a good chunk of the year in first place and end up missing the playoffs by 1 game. I think this team is too good to miss the playoffs. It's too good to miss the playoffs. That's just one man's opinion. Continuing on State of the State, last week we really didn't have any Bucks news to really pass along, but we do have a little bit of a conversation to have about them this week. The Bucks re-signed Shabazz Muhammad, who was a late entry on the team last season, played really decently in short minutes. He was not great in Minnesota. Let's make no bones about that. He was not great in Minnesota, but he did provide some excellent short minutes for the Bucks this season, including the playoffs. It's more than likely a training camp deal. He's a training camp body, the 15th guy on this roster. I believe you end up asking the question, who's going to make it? Will it be Muhammad? Will it be Tyler Zeller? What are they going to do with that center spot? What are they going to do with that center spot? Because after Brook Lopez, it is a humongous drop-off. It is a humongous drop-off, which I guess is a step up from last season because you had John Henson starting and you really didn't have anybody truthfully behind them that you could trust. So it wasn't really like a drop-off. I mean, you were falling off to begin with. So now it's a major drop-off. So what are they going to do with that spot? How are they going to utilize that spot? This move really got me asking that question. And then I also think, is there a trade imminent? You know, you got another body in for training camp purposes. I mean, there's got to be another move coming, I would think. I don't think Budenholzer and company, John Horst, the GM, Milwaukee Bucks, are done building this squad, nor should they be. They should be tinkering this squad. It's not complete. I don't think it's where they want it to be in order to compete at a level that they feel they can. So I just, that move just really got me thinking. I don't know where they're going to go with that position. You can't exactly go out there and play Lopez 48 minutes. You're going to have to trust somebody. You're probably going to have to end up playing Thon in that spot, but Thon doesn't really have the skill set of a 5. He really doesn't. He doesn't really have an inside game. He's a shooter. We saw a little bit last season. He's learned how to put the basketball on the floor, and I think that's a skill that is going to further develop, because once he does that and he starts hitting that shot consistently on the outside, as he did with confidence in his rookie year, that could be a really dangerous player. That could be a nightmare matchup, but there's still work to be done there with Thon. Is there plan to even keep Thon? Are they going to package him in a trade and try to get something else? It's little roster moves like this that really get me thinking. And I know it's not huge news. Again, I think Muhammad's probably going to just be a training camp body, and they're going to have to make a decision on whether or not to keep him or keep Zeller, or what are they going to do? Is there another trade imminent? Little moves like that just really get me thinking about the Bucks. But that's the Bucks news for this week. The only thing I can pass on to you, I don't know what they're going to do. It's going to be really interesting as the season gets closer to see if they're done shaping this roster. Again, I don't believe they are. I believe a trade is imminent. With who, I don't know. For who, I don't know. I know the name of Kent Bazemore, who's currently on Atlanta, played under Budenholzer. His name has been attached to the Bucks as far as a possible trade. I haven't heard anything about any real traction on that. I'll continue to work on that, but I don't think this roster is done being tinkered with, and nor should it. It is not a championship roster just yet. But moves like that just really get you thinking, what are they going to do? Let's move on State of the State and go to the Green Bay Packers, who had their first preseason game last Thursday, a victory against the Tennessee Titans, 31-17. There were some things to like, there were some things to dislike, but it was pretty much par for the course for your very first preseason game. Obviously, the heavy hitters like Aaron Rodgers did not play, Mike Daniels did not play, Clay Matthews did not play. Nick Perry did not play. Jair Alexander did not play. He was dealing with injury as well as some of those other guys. Let's talk about that defense, though. And you have to take everything with a grain of salt, especially when it comes to the very first preseason game. It's the first dress rehearsal. You got a bunch of rookies out there, a bunch of guys who haven't played NFL games before. They were, one big bugaboo I had about that defense was the fact they were out of position. Quite a bit. They missed some assignments. They were out of sorts. And again, you didn't have most of your heavy hitters out there on defense. It's not like you played your entire first string, because you didn't. It's the first preseason game. Marcus Mariota went up and down that field effortlessly. Scored pretty easily in his only series of action for Tennessee. against that defense. Another thing I noticed about that defense, they really didn't bring much pressure. Mike Pettin really did not bring a whole lot of pressure. He really, to me, and just looking at the game, looking at the tape, he really worked on coverages. Make sure guys were in their right spots, which, again, sometimes they were, a lot of times they weren't. And that comes to be expected from your first preseason game and also the installation of a new defense. Again, Mike Pettin is a brand new defensive coordinator for the Packers. You have a whole new system to learn. You've been under, or bulk of these guys have been under Dom Capers for a long time, some 6, 7, 8 years. So you have to unlearn what you learn, install a new system, learn new tendencies, learn new nuances and places to be and all that. It's a brand new system. So not a whole lot of pressure. So it's going to be interesting to see how many first string defense players are going to come back as far as the guys who need to bring pressure, the guys like Nick Perry, the guys like Nick Perry, guys like Nick Perry, guys like Clay Matthews, how they're going to bring pressure. Because it's one thing to kind of see the nuances of it in training camp practice, which I have, but it's another thing to see an actual game action. And we didn't really get a chance to really truthfully see the packages for pressure that Pettin is going to try to install with this team and unleash on teams. So it's going to be interesting to see that. Quarterback play was quarterback play. Again, Aaron Rodgers did not play. So you got the likes of Brett Hundley, for better or for worse, Deshaun Kaiser, and Boyle, who played. Hundley was the same old for me. He's been good in multiple preseasons now. But it's actual game action, like we saw last season, that he is not competent for. Not yet. One day you believe he will get there. But he isn't there yet. One thing that I didn't notice in training camp practices, and one thing that he wanted to make a point of emphasis, and Mike McCarthy also wanted to make a point of emphasis for him, was to play faster. Go through your progressions quicker. Make decisions a lot quicker. Because if you remember from last year, for lack of a better term, this offense with him at the helm, and we're talking Brett Hundley, was impotent. Could not rise to the occasion whatsoever. All right, it just could not. It was powerless, rudderless, pathetic, where you're getting shut out multiple times. When this team hasn't been shut out multiple times in the season in a very long time, and you look at the quarterbacks who have been at the helm, you talk about a Hall of Famer in Brett Favre, you talk about a future first ballot Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers, and you're getting this team shut out. You're doing things that those guys have not done in a long time. It's not a good look. So he wanted to put the emphasis on playing faster, going through progressions quicker, making faster decisions so those windows for throws are open. You're not turning the ball over. You're not getting it knocked away. You're not dealing with inaccuracies. And he did really well with that for what I saw. But it was pretty much same old from him. It's one thing to do in the preseason. It's another thing to do it in the regular season. And it's not something he could do in the regular season. You go to Deshaun Kaiser. He did some good things, showed a little bit of his athleticism. Wasn't incredibly accurate, but he made some very good throws. You could see the skills there. And again, people were poo-pooing on him. He's a terrible quarterback. Why would the Packers trade for him? What are they doing? He's got skills, and it's not his fault he was thrown to the wolves of a god-awful Cleveland ball club. Cleveland was terrible. They were terrible. They didn't have anything to compete. They didn't have anything to truthfully protect that young guy. If people were expecting him to go out there and be a world beater with that roster, no. But I did like the athleticism that he showed, some of his decision-making that he showed in Thursday night's game. That was good to see. Boyle was really probably the most impressive of the three. His hookup with Jake Kumerow, which was just a great moment. And I think Kumerow is probably going to make the squad. He continues to go out there and make plays. He just needs to continue doing that, continue to progress, continue to earn A-Rod's trust, and he'll be good. But Boyle definitely showed some things, man. He really showed some things. But again, it's preseason. It's easy to do that against the C team defense of the Tennessee Titans, guys that you're probably not going to see make a team They may not even make practice squad for their respective squad. So, you got to take it with a grain of salt, but you also have to learn how to take the good and the bad of those performances technically. They have to be technically sound. Some of the things that I saw technically from those guys were pretty good, and some things need work. Footwork is one of them. Decision-making is one of them. Quickly going through progressions is one of them. I think it took a while for some of these guys to make a decision, and sometimes they were wide open, but again, they were playing against a C-team defense. So you got a lot to like from those young quarterbacks. We got to get to these wide receivers, though, because Aaron Rodgers was pissed off. He was pissed off in training camp at the effort that some of these guys were showing, the seriousness that some of these guys were showing, and he pretty much doubled down on speaking on that a couple days ago. And I loved every bit of it because he said, look, I'm here to win games. I'm not here to make front office decisions or anything like that. I'm here to win games. That's my job. He's not going to sugarcoat anything, and nor should he. He's the leader of this team, and he's being a leader, and he's trying to get those young guys who this team is more than likely going to have to lean on to go out there and make plays in big moments. And the emphasis that Rodgers is placing on that is understandable because he no longer has his security blanket. He no longer has Jordy Nelson there. Jordy Nelson was definitely his security blanket. He will go to him when things seem bleak, and they'd usually come up with a big play. That's not to say he doesn't trust Randall. He does, but not to the level of Jordy. That's not to say he doesn't trust Devontae Adams, who also had a really good first preseason game. He does, but it's not to the level of Jordy. He trusts those guys, but you have to go to more than two guys. He and Jimmy Graham are developing some great chemistry. They really are. I wish all of you could be in Green Bay, Wisconsin to see some of these practices. The chemistry that they're developing is downright scary. The things they're going to do in the red zone and up the seam are scary. Whenever this offense has a dynamic tight end, as Jimmy Graham has shown he can be, makes it the most dangerous offense in all the NFL. Because you got the best player in the world at quarterback, at the helm, running that offense. But these young guys have to get it. I think he would be the exact same way even if Jordy was here. These young guys have to get it. Guys like Geronimo Allison, who has taken a bit of a step forward, he has to get it. Valdez-Scantling has to get it. St. Brown has to get it. Yancey has to get it. You have to take this thing seriously, man. He's going to be depending on you guys in certain plays. There are going to be certain times where teams are able to lock up Devontae Adams. They're able to lock up, Randall Cobb. They're able to lock up Jimmy Graham. Now it's going to have to come and look to you. And you're going to have to go out there and make a play. So I love the fire that he's showing already in preseason. I love the fire he's showing in training camp. It's what a leader should do. You need to get those guys and slap them back in line, get them serious. We're here to win games. And we're not here just to win games. We're world championship contenders. That's what this machine has been for a very long time. And that's what it will continue to be. 13 world championships. Those didn't come easy. And those didn't come around from playing around at training camp. You can have your fun, but there's times to take things seriously, especially when you're a rookie coming into this league and you have no idea what this league is truly about. So I love the fire and the passion coming out of Aaron Rodgers right now, getting those young receivers back in line, getting them serious about this thing and putting out max effort every single snap. Love the urgency that he's showing. He understands it. He gets it. You can't be world championship contenders forever. There are windows. So it's definitely urgency coming from him, and I think that's going to travel throughout the rest of the team. They're going to understand it. They're going to get it. I love seeing that fire. I love seeing that passion from the leader of the team. What mattered to me if it was Aaron Rodgers or Mike Daniels saying this. I love seeing that fire and passion from the leader of the team. But that's the state of the state. Brewers have got to get hot and stay hot. 3 games back of the Cubs for the NL Central Division lead. 2 games above the Cardinals for that second wild card in the National League. They got to get it going. The Bucks, I don't know what they're going to do with their roster. Is a trade imminent? I don't know. I don't know if there's any traction with Kent Bazemore. We'll find out more about that soon. And the Packers, preseason victory against the Titans. A lot to like, a lot to dislike, much to work on. Aaron Rodgers showing urgency, showing passion, showing fire, trying to get his young guys ready to play and chase after a world championship. That's what you want from your leader of the team. Coming up next on Toss, we have to run the toss sweep, and just when y'all thought it was over, it ain't over. Shoegate continues. What am I talking about? Well, come on back and find out. Toss sweep coming up next. TossNationMedia.com is your home for the Toss brand of sports. It's this very program, the Tristain Sports Show. It's the brand new segment, Tossed Up, and of course, the quick toss videos coming to you soon. The season premiere of Green Bay Packers regular season football starts. Again, TossNationMedia.com. Welcome back to Toss. It's T-Squared, Tristan Thomas back with you. And it's time for us to run the toss sweep. Last week, we spoke about what I have now named Shoegate. 13 University of North Carolina football players were suspended from the team from selling limited edition Jordan Retro 3s on the resale market. Now, if you're a sneakerhead, as I am myself, you know the resale market for limited edition shoes, especially shoes that the regular public cannot get. Oh, it's lit. You can make thousands upon thousands of dollars. And people have made legitimate businesses doing this, earning contacts, earning sources, earning plugs, trying to get those limited edition shoes from those colleges, trying to get those limited edition shoes from friends and family packs that these companies send those to celebrities like DJ Khaled, to celebrities, your well-known celebrity sneakerheads, DJ Khaled being a huge one. But just when you thought Shoegate was over, it ain't over. They suspended 13 North Carolina football players. They are now investigating 3 other schools. And that's 3 other Jordan schools because nobody wants to get a limited pair of Under Armour. So, I mean, I'm sorry if you do, but the resale market ain't lit for your Under Armours as they are for retro Jordans. Okay, that's just the market is huge for that, or some Adidas like the Yeezys and things like that. But when you're talking retro limited edition, you can't go and buy these from anybody else. They're only given to certain people type shoes. Resale market is going to be lit for thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. So they're investigating the other Jordan brand schools. Oklahoma just came on as a Jordan school. So they haven't really been issued anything that's been able to be sold yet. So they're out of it. The other Jordan brand schools that are currently being investigated, including one right here in Wisconsin, right down in Milwaukee, Marquette University is a Jordan brand school. They are being investigated, or at least their school is doing an internal investigation on themselves. And they don't believe any player is going to be suspended. They don't think any of their players have sold those shoes. But they are taking measures, all 3 of these schools that I'm going to mention. They are taking measures to make sure they're able to keep track of who did it or prevent them from reselling these shoes. Marquette University, players will wear the shoes. Okay, they're going to wear the shoes multiple times in an effort to decrease the value. So again, if you're a sneakerhead, but if you're not, I'll explain it to you. In the resale market, there's condition ratings, right? So a 9.5 is close to being perfect because it's on a scale of 10. Maybe has a small crease, a little bit of wear and tear, not terrible, still looks almost flawless, like it just came out the box, like it was dead stock. A dead stock pair of shoes means it's never been worn. None of that. It's dead stock, has not been worn, has not been used, anything. It's just been looked at. So in an effort to crease up these shoes and decrease the value to where nobody would want them, they're going to make them wear the shoes multiple times in an effort to decrease the value. That's what Marquette University is going to do. They're also going to stitch the numbers and everything else on the inside of it like the other schools are going to do. So they're being investigated. They don't believe that any of their athletes will be suspended for that. It's mainly basketball. They don't have a football team. But they don't believe in their athletes will be suspended for reselling the shoes, which we'll get to that in a minute. Michigan, University of Michigan, they too stitched the players' names on the inside of those shoes or the uniform number. They also have their athletes sign a form stating that they know reselling these shoes could jeopardize their eligibility. Which, I mean, hey, if they're signing a form and saying, hey, I understand the rules, I understand I can't resell these, even though it ain't illegal. And again, it's not illegal. And I'll get to that in a second. I understand that selling these will jeopardize my eligibility. Last school investigating themselves or being investigated. Oregon, which, again, if you're a sneakerhead, you know that Oregon has had some of the most lit collections of Jordan Brand shoes. I mean, they're right there in Nike's backyard in Oregon. Phil Knight, all those cats. They are pretty much the child of Nike, pretty much. I mean, they get everything from Nike, Jordan Brand. I mean, they've had some of the best edition or best player edition Jordans that I've seen. What is Oregon doing? Oregon is in the same game as Marquette, making their players wear these shoes, but they take it to another level. They make them wear them during travel. Okay, so traveling to the games, you're going to wear these, you're going to crease them up. They make them wear them to certain events. So you're going to wear them not only during travel, but you're going to wear them during certain team events. So you crease them up and you're going to decrease the value. But on top of that, Oregon also, after wearing these shoes, puts them in trunks. So the players do not have access to them until after their eligibility is expired. Okay. All right. So this is the thing. The NCAA is the devil. They're the devil. Because look, reselling shoes is not illegal. It's not illegal. I would much rather have my kid reselling shoes than to be selling drugs. Right? This reminds me of the story of the kid in elementary school who was suspended from school from selling tiny baggies of hot flaming Cheetos. He was suspended from school from selling little baggies of hot flaming Cheetos for like $0.25 a piece. Now, back in my days in high school, I used to have 2 Trapper Keepers full. Yes, I said Trapper Keeper of product. So you got Capri Suns in one. You got Reese's and all these other candy bars in the other one. You sell them for 50 cents a pop. There you go. You got extra money to go and do whatever you want with. I wasn't out there slanging rock. The only rock I was slanging was Pop Rocks. These kids ain't out here selling rocks. They're reselling shoes. They're shoes, and they can make thousands of dollars for them, which is more than what you're giving them. Now, I can already hear the crowd because I already saw y'all in my DMs. I already saw y'all in my emails at Toss Nation Media giving me the whole spiel about, oh, well, this school costs $100,000 to go to. So, you figure over a course of 4 years, that's almost $500,000 that it's spent on this. They get enough money. No, they don't. That's tuition for the school, which we already know the tuitions at some of these places, the way they've exploded is just a crock, an absolute farce. No reason for them to expand that much, but that's a different story for a different day. Books, room and board, food, that until recently, after they imposed the Sebastian Napier rule to where players could get extra food, they looked at that as an extra benefit. Food for these athletes, the people who need to eat, the people who need sustenance, because they're out there expending all that energy. Extra food was thought to be an extra benefit. Are you kidding me? It is no longer because of the Shabazz Napier rule. It's absolutely ridiculous. The NCAA is the devil. You mean to tell me that you're going to come down hard on these kids for trying to make a few extra thousands for themselves and quite possibly their family off limited edition shoes, as opposed to being able to do other stuff or maybe fall into some of the other rat hole stuff that's out there? You won't allow them to do that and make money for themselves, but you will gladly go and make billions off these kids. Your contract for the NCAA men's basketball tournament through 2032 is worth $19.6 billion with a B, $billion. And you're worried about these kids reselling shoes for a couple grand. Wow. When you really put it in perspective like that, I love the kids in college. I love watching the grit, the passion, the determination they bring to that field, to that court, whatever their sport that is on display. They produce this product, not the NCAA. I love the kids, but I cannot stand the NCAA. They are the devil. These kids are just trying to get some extra money for themselves. Harmlessly. They're not harming anyone out there. They're not selling drugs. They're selling shoes that brings people happiness. And you have to put the squash on that. I would say you should be ashamed of yourselves, but I already know you don't have any shame because you're exploiting these kids for $19.6 billion. And you won't even allow them to make a couple grand off a pair of shoes. Despicable. This is Toss. All right, y'all, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This has been episode 37 of the Tristain Sports Show Toss. Hey, quick programming note. Next Wednesday, August 22nd, I believe it's 22nd, but either way, next Wednesday, there will be no new Toss. Main man has got to go on vacation. All right, got to spend some of this vacation time, got to spend some time with family, but we will be back after that. I believe that will be Wednesday, August 29th. So no new Toss next Wednesday. Hey, you know the website, tossnationmedia.com. That's tossnationmedia.com. You know my Twitter, but I'll give it to you anyway, at the20double, which is also now my Instagram username. Both at the20double. And don't forget, Wednesday night, 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, catch myself and Professor P on the Home Court Sports Show on Facebook Live. That's facebook.com/Home Court Sports. 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. We got Wednesday nights on lock. But as I said before, it's time for me to get on up out of here. This is T Squared. Such a time as grinding off you. I'm the one and only. So you embrace it. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Until then, so long.